Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from Washington, D.C. I'm Kate Fisher, and in this bulletin we'll get you a roundup on stories developing around the world. First up, the headlines.
Now we are looking much more at technology, at innovation, at, I would say, human-centric activities, because that's where the world is heading.
Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar speaks exclusively to WION during his Israel visit. He says the focus of his visit is on greater collaboration in technology innovation. Over 40 people have been arrested in Bangladesh's Rangpur over targeted attacks on minorities, which left over 25 homes vandalised and torched. The US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin says the US is keeping a close watch on China's development of advanced weapons systems, even as Beijing says it had tested a space vehicle in July and not a hypersonic missile, as claimed by a newspaper report.
Question today will come.
Italian police use water cannons against protesters following a 3-day demonstration against a new mandatory workplace COVID-19 pass. Cannons target hundreds of protesters who've been blocking one of the port entrances since Friday. In tennis, Paula Badosa downs two-time champion Victoria Azarenka in a 3-hour epic to become the first Spaniard to win the women's singles at Indian Wells. Britain's Cameron Norrie wins a maiden Masters 1000 title to climb to a career-high 16 in the world rankings. Indian Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar is in Israel, his maiden visit to the country. He's holding high-level meetings with the Naftali Bennett government. In focus is a quadrilateral meeting between the US, India, Israel and the UAE. The Indian Foreign Minister also met with his Israeli counterpart, Yair Lapid. India and Israel have decided to renew negotiations on a free trade agreement and also on mutual recognition of vaccination certificates. The two foreign ministers, along with the Israeli Minister of Energy, also attended a signing ceremony marking Israel's accession to the ISA. The ISA is the International Solar Alliance, which is based out of India's Gurgaon. The ISA has 124 member countries, and its aim is to harness solar energy to reduce dependency on fossil fuels. Joining the alliance will allow Israel to contribute its knowledge and experience on solar power to the organisation.
Let me say what a great pleasure it is to see Israel joining the International Solar Alliance. I think you bring a lot of value to the table, and as we approach COP26, it's very important that in our growing agenda, green growth, green economy is given its due place.
So we already had a very good meeting discussing various issues and challenges that we have. India is one of our most, not only strategic partners, but lawful friends. These are ancient communities with a tendency to move towards modernity as fast as we can.
The foreign minister also paid homage to the victims of the Holocaust. Israel's ambassador to India called it an emotional tour as he took Jai Shankar through Israel's largest memorial for the victims. The Indian Foreign Minister also unveiled a plaque commemorating the Bhutan Grove. This was planted by Sarvodaya workers in 1960. Jai Shankar also said that the India-Israel relations have many facets and many contributors. A key highlight of his visit was a meeting with the Indian Jewish community in Israel. He hailed their manifold contribution to the ties between the two countries, citing ancient connections between India and Israel. Jai Shankar also met Israel's chambers of commerce and spoke at the India-Israel Business Roundtable, where he urged Israeli corporations to invest in India. Jai Shankar appreciated the Israeli Chambers of Commerce and the innovation ecosystem for their visible enthusiasm towards more partnerships with India. India and Israel have traditionally enjoyed close ties. Although India had recognised the Jewish state of Israel in 1950, it established full diplomatic relations only in 1992. Since then, there's been an upswing in the relations between the two countries in view of their common concerns. WION's Jody Cohen spoke to India's foreign minister and asked him what this visit means for India-Israel relations. Listen in to this exclusive conversation.
Nice to meet you. Thank you. So, Minister Jai Shankar, we're standing by a model of an ancient synagogue from India.
We're standing actually at the synagogue.
We are standing at the synagogue.
Yes.
And the ties between the Jewish community in India and in Israel, and indeed the ties between Israel, they've been going on for 30 years now. Where do you expect the cooperation between the two countries to go from here?
Well, in a way, it's a very appropriate place that we are talking because this place in many ways expresses the deep civilizational bonds between India and Israel. Our relationship, of course, is rooted in history, but very much a part of modernity as well. Our relationship in the last many years has covered areas like agriculture, water, to some degree defense, security. But now we are looking much more at technology, at innovation, at, I would say, human-centric activities, because that's where the world is heading. It could be in terms of the green economy, it could be in terms of the frontiers of different technologies. So I'm very sure that the next 30 years would be way, way beyond the last 30 years.
The Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jai Shankar is in Israel in a very important visit, a visit that has seen he interacting with the new leadership. Also, when it comes to people-to-people engagement, that is a strong component of this visit. He paid homage to the Indian soldiers who laid their lives when it comes to the Battle of Haifa in World War I, liberating the city from the Ottoman forces, but also meeting with the Indian origin Jews, highlighting their role in Israel and India-Israel relationship. But also a key component is the multilateral aspect. The Quad meeting, the first such Quad meeting, the virtual meeting of India, Israel, UAE and American foreign ministers virtually is going to happen later today. And we know that when it comes to this meeting, this is a direct outcome of the Abraham Accords that saw normalization of relationship between UAE and Israel. India has good relationship with both the countries. In fact, earlier this year, the three countries signed a trilateral pact for robotics, which will see an Israeli company building robots here in India for use in UAE, and later in November we will see the foreign ministers of these countries, including foreign ministers of Egypt, Cyprus and other countries including Greece, coming together in Dubai for a meeting on connectivity that basically envisages connectivity from Mediterranean to India via the Arab world. And that is why this visit is significant at multiple levels. Sudhan Sibal for WION with camera person Neeraj in New Delhi.
In an horrific incident, a woman was raped on a suburban Philadelphia train. The police said that there were a lot of people around who should have done something. Several passengers on a moving train saw the accused sexually assault a woman, but they did not intervene. A 35-year-old man is now facing criminal charges for rape and assault. The attack took place on the night of October the 13th. The assault, recorded on the train's surveillance cameras, went on for 8 minutes. The man sat next to the woman and tried to start a conversation with her. Over the next few minutes, when she kept rejecting his advances, the accused was seen getting aggressive. He ripped off her clothes and raped her. Several people present on the train did not act or intervene by calling 911. A southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority employee who saw the attack was the first to report it, and he called 911. Officials are trying to look into the surveillance videos to identify those present in the train car and to interview possible witnesses. The survivor, who did not know the attacker, was taken to a hospital and was treated for her injuries. The Transportation Authority issued a statement calling it an horrendous criminal act, and said it may have stopped sooner if a rider had called 911. Well, for more, let's go across now to WION correspondent Susan Tehrani, who's joining us live from New York. Susan, it seems incredible that nobody intervened here. What more can you tell us about the investigation?
So this man was homeless. He is in custody. As you mentioned, he has been charged with aggravated assault and rape. We don't know who his lawyer is. He will be assigned with a lawyer, and he's in custody. Criminologists generally say that there are several reasons why people don't intervene. One of them is fear of retaliation. The other one is they hope that other people will intervene. But this really speaks of a larger problem, crime in big cities right now across the United States, and the lack of law enforcement. Part of it going back to the defund the police movement, and the other, going back to lack of crime bills, perhaps, that need to be updated, and something that is really center stage right now on Capitol Hill. The issue of homelessness, again, that also plays really in the heart of a state like Pennsylvania, Philadelphia as well. A lot of factors into it. I do want to mention that just an update on this. Philadelphia doesn't have a good Samaritan law to see what would happen to these individuals who were witnesses, and if these surveillance footages do capture someone actually filming the incident and not intervening. If that happens, some action may be taken against that individual, but we yet don't know what kind of action, because there is no law, would be taken against an individual that perhaps films an incident like this but decides not to intervene to stop it.
Susan, thank you. Amid an economic and political crisis, gangs in the Caribbean nation of Haiti are growing increasingly brazen. A US Christian aid organisation said that a group of its missionaries had been kidnapped in Haiti. The group was on a visit to an orphanage when their bus was hijacked outside the capital, Port-au-Prince. The island nation is witnessing a spike in kidnappings following the murder of its president, Jovenel Moïse.
Ohio-based Christian Aid Ministries said on Sunday that 17 of its missionaries, including children, have been kidnapped in Haiti. In a statement, the group said 5 men, 7 women, and 5 children were abducted during a trip to visit an orphanage on Saturday. 16 are Americans and 1 is a Canadian citizen. The Millersburg, Ohio headquarters for Christian Aid Ministries on Sunday appeared to be closed. Multiple news outlets said the group was kidnapped by armed gang members in the capital of Port-au-Prince. Gang violence has surged in the Caribbean nation following the assassination of its president in July and an earthquake in August that killed over 2,000 people. Crises that have displaced thousands and hampered economic activity in the poorest country in the Americas. A U.S. State Department spokesperson told Reuters it was aware of the kidnapping, but did not offer further details.
It's been 2 months since the Taliban took over Kabul, but recent attacks in the country have raised questions about security. In the latest, Taliban sources have claimed that the ISIS Khorasan shadow governor for Nangarhar has been captured alive. This development comes just days after the Islamic State claims responsibility for Friday's attack in Kandahar. The attack was carried out at a Shiite mosque. It was the fourth mass casualty massacre since the Taliban took Kabul. The latest attack shows a pattern of targeting Shiite mosques on Friday. The group behind the attack is ISIS-K or ISIS Khorasan. ISIS-K has waged a small but highly active insurgency in Afghanistan. The Taliban have battled with ISIS since its emergence in the country in 2014. The ISIS affiliate has claimed responsibility for most of the recent attacks. So when WION's Anas Malik spoke to the Taliban Interior Ministry spokesperson, he asked him if Mr. Haqqani had given any directive to act on ISIS-K. Let's listen in.
Afghanistan and the world has not heard from the Ministry of Interior, Mr. Sirajuddin Haqqani, on the issue of ISK and other terror-linked groups. What do you think? Do you not think it is a problem because it's not coming public? What are his instructions would you like to disclose with regards to these groups, these terror-linked groups such as ISK and others?
مشران چې دي های لیول مشران چې دي هغوی ته تر اوسه پورې د اسلامي امارت د علماو د رهبرۍ او د مشایخو له لورې اجازه نه ده شوې چې هغه عام څرګند شي راووځي. کله چې د اسلامي امارت د مشایخو علماء کرامو له لورې دوی ته اجازه وشي چې عام میډیا ته راڅرګند شي هغه وخت کې بیا دوی هم راڅرګند شي.
According to Kosti, Taliban leaders are working on a strategy to eliminate ISIS-K-related hurdles in the country. This comes as the Moscow format meeting on Afghanistan is scheduled to take place on October the 20th in the Russian capital. This is the first edition of the dialogue since the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan. The talks will also be attended by India, China and Pakistan. Meanwhile, former Afghan President Hamid Karzai has said that the Taliban needs internal legitimacy in order for it to gain international recognition. He said it can only be achieved through the expression of the will of the Afghan people, either in the form of elections or holding the lawyer jirga.
Legitimacy within our own country for this government or for any other government is the foundation of recognition by countries and the international community. And how to bring about legitimacy within the country is, of course, premised on either an election or, in case of Afghanistan, especially under the current circumstances, the expression of the will of the Afghan people through the royal jirga. And the introduction of a constitution, and so on.
The volcano on Spain's Canary Island, La Palma, has been erupting for over a month now. While casualties have been avoided due to timely evacuations, the volcano has so far destroyed over 1,800 buildings, mostly homes. Our next report brings you more on this.
The volcano that's caused chaos and destruction on the island of La Palma in Spain has now been erupting for a month, and authorities say there's no end in sight, leaving heartache for the towns here and people who live in them. The Cumbre Vieja volcano has now destroyed almost 2,000 buildings and covered over 1,800 acres in lava. Many animals, like dogs, have been left homeless or abandoned. This drone is bringing food to some they found stranded. About 83,000 people live here, and 7,000 of them have been forced to evacuate. For many of those who haven't, the ash coats everything. This waitress is telling us her throat hurts because of the falling ash, like a bad allergy. She has to constantly sweep it off the tables. On one of the neighboring islands, this man says he'd gone on vacation, but now the lava is only 250 meters from his house. The sadness is immense, he says. The Canary Islands depend on tourism, but the event has disrupted flights in and out of La Palma. The lava has also destroyed banana and avocado plantations, another major part of the local economy.
That's all from me here in Washington, D.C. But for more global news and updates, do stay tuned to WION. World is One.
This is right, Arab.